The Greek philosopher Hippocrates believed that there were four natural elements: air, water, fire, and earth, and four bodily fluids or humors that affect human behavior: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. This was further elaborated by the Roman physician Galen. He said that a person with a high ratio of blood is sanguine or cheerful. One with a lot of phlegm is slow or unemotional. One with an oversupply of yellow bile is melancholic or sad and lonely. In the 19th century, Franz Gall, a phrenologist, attempted to connect personality with bumps and the shape of the skull. Later in the same century, Cesare Lombroso, influenced by Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, argued that physical features of criminals mark them as evolutionary throwbacks. According to Lombroso, criminals have features such as prominent jaws and eyebrows and asymmetric skulls, which make them insensitive to pain and prone to impulsive behavior. During the early part of the 20th century, German psychiatrist Ernst Kretzschmer presented personality classification based on body build. 1. Asthenic, thin, tall, fragile, narrowly built, and looks very weak. 2. Athletic, muscular and energetic. 3. Picnic, round and robust or plump. And 4. Dysplastic, malproportioned body, a combination of any of the above body builds. Kretzschmer, through his long psychiatric practice, was convinced that there are similar relationships between body build and two major forms of mental disorders. He concluded that those with the picnic body build were more likely to be manic depressive, and schizophrenia was associated with this asthenic body build. However, Kretzschmer gave no direct evidence to support his observation. In the first half of the 20th century, William Sheldon examined the relationship between body type and personality. He divided the human physique into two types, namely, the hypothetical biological structures called morphogenotype and the external observable physique called phenotype. The attempt to measure the morphogenotype is done indirectly through the phenotype using what he called the somatotype performance test. Sheldon's primary component of body build includes 1. Endomorphy, round soft bodies with large abdomen. 2. Mesomorphy, hard, sturdy, and strong bones and muscles. 3. Ectomorphy, thin, small-boned, fragile, with flat chest. Sheldon developed a system of somatotyping by scoring the 5 different areas of the body, namely head, chest, arms, stomach, and the legs. Sheldon further identified 3 components of temperament, namely endomorphy was associated with viscerotonia, mesomorphy with somatotonia, and ectomorphy with cerebrotonia. Secondary components of body build are as follows: dysplasia, 2. Gonadotrophy, 3. Textural index. Psychometric influences. One of the first personality tests is R.S. Wordsworth's personal data sheet, which was used as early as the First World War. This inventory test was a partial substitute for the psychiatric interview to screen out maladjusted or mentally ill recruits. Other tests were later introduced, like the Mooney problem checklists, the Brenn-Reuter personality test, and the California Test of Personal Inventory. To arrive at a systematic evaluation of personality, psychologists developed the factor analysis test, such as Raymond Cattell's 16 Personality Factors Questionnaire and Guilford Zimmerman's Temperament Survey. More recent tests are Edwards Personal Preference Schedule, or the EPPS, and the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Projective tests. Projective tests provide a different approach to personality assessment. The main hypothesis of this technique is that people will structure or perceive ambiguous stimuli in accordance with their own aspirations, goals, or conflicts and dispositions, including or especially unconscious ones. Hermann Rorschach, a Swiss psychiatrist, introduced the 10 ink block tests in 1921. Other psychologists devised systems based on the Rorschach test, like Bruno Kloepfer, Samuel Beck, David Rappaport, and John E. Exner. The Holtzman ink block test was devised to answer some of the problems of the Rorschach test. It contains 45 different ink blocks, where the subject is instructed to make one response to each block. Another kind of projective test is the Thematic Apperception Test, or TAT, which was developed by Christian Morgan and Henry Murray in 1935. Psychologists and researchers continue to improve personality assessment through the application of factor analysis, the king of individual system against highly specific criteria, the case of forced choice technique, and the development of verification and correct scales. According to Anne Anastasi, diagnostic testing should be used as an aid in describing and understanding the individual, identifying his problems, and reaching appropriate action decisions. Hence, personality test findings could be used as a stepping stone or springboard for a clinical interview and for counseling purposes. Limitation of psychological personality tests. Critics believe that the assessment of personality based on self-inventory and projective tests has the following disadvantages. 1. Falling and malingering is common and has a halo effect. 2. Personality is so dynamic. Responses are unstable and so easy to change over a period. 3. The presence of response bias, which is the automatic tendency to answer in a certain way regardless of the content of the item. 4. Greater situational specificity of response in the non-cognitive or in the sphere of personality.